I build my body for me, and it's always been about improving my health and to improve my quality of life. I was overweight, I was asthmatic, and I really struggled fitting in at school. Fitness became something for me that allowed me to break through that barrier and become more confident. A bodybuilder to me is somebody who builds their body to not only improve their physical appearance, to build more muscle, but it's definitely to improve the quality of their life. And what comes with that is confidence. And so building my body has become more than just about how I look in the mirror. It's become far more over the years of looking inwards and understanding how it's benefiting my life, that it's become something that I can continue for years to come. It always comes back to, am I happy with what I've achieved within myself, the effort that I've put in? And if I can say yes, then I've won regardless of what I've done. The fitness lifestyle, the bodybuilding lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, to me, it's become easier because it's not a chore. It's not something I have to do. It's not something I wake up and I think about doing it. It just happens because of the years of repetition, of waking up and doing the things that make me feel good, and it's totally worth it. Like, it's not even a question because the reward is there. Build dedication, build direction. Build your body, build your life. Bodybuilding.com.
It felt like I was drowning, and I couldn't keep my head above water. Fitness is actually what saved my life. Several years ago, I found myself very involved and obsessed with the way that I looked and every aspect of my life.
What's up, friends? My name is Cassie. We're here at the Bodybuilding.com gym. I am a competitive CrossFitter, a national level weightlifter, and a USA Weightlifting certified sports performance coach, level 2. This here is Dean. Dean is a CrossFit coach and a CrossFitter himself, and an all-around rad human being, which is why I invited him here today to talk about squats. And while we're here talking to you about squats, if any of you have any ideas of what we should do with our hands, let us know. It's awkward.
Questions, tutorials, or
Get
questions?
there. Okay. We are on Facebook, the YouTubes, and the Twitch. If you have questions, concerns, just things, secrets you want to tell us, just write them on the keyboard, and we'll do our best to answer them the best we can. I think that's about all we need to know. Anything else? So yeah, please ask us questions about squatting, about fitness in general, nutrition, bodybuilding, anything you have a question about, we're going to do our best to answer them for you. And let's get started. I have, sound, is the sound working? Can everyone hear me? Tips for keeping weight off heels. Serena, okay, we're gonna get there. Hang on, we're gonna go through lots of stuff about the squat. We're gonna get to your questions in 1 second, or probably more than 1 second. Multiple seconds, but we're gonna get there. Okay, Dean, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, all warmed up. So Dean's gonna do most of his stuff facing this way, so you guys can see what his body is doing, and I will awkwardly ghost not touch him as we go along. Should be good. First things first, when it comes to squat, for most beginners, and I particularly see this issue in women, is when people squat, when she squats, the first thing she does is she brings her knees forward. Look at that. Does that look familiar? So what happens when you try to squat with your knees forward is that puts a lot of tension here. You're not using your hamstrings or your butt at all, really. You can stand back up. It's all quads. In the bodybuilding world, some of this, you can call this a sissy squat. Aptly named. I don't suggest using that if you're learning how to do a proper back squat or really any other squat variation. The best way to learn how to do the squat movement at all is called a hip hinge, and this means you push your hips and butt backwards, like Dean's doing, and then you can bend your legs. So see how his first movement is back, not forward. If you have your hips back, it's much, much easier to keep your weight in your heels. It's much, much easier to have your weight evenly distributed. It's much less likely that you're going to come up on your toes. Much better overall around. Wow. Harley Reed asks, what's the best to do squats with? Smith machine, barbell, or dumbbell? Harley, that's a great question. The answer is it depends, like usual. I don't like the Smith machine because that makes you sit in a very awkward position because that barbell is in a fixed plane. I would much prefer that you do a just straight, full out, regular barbell. And we'll talk about the reasons why. Because you can play where the barbell sits on your back a little bit. That barbell can move better over your center of mass, which on a Smith machine doesn't do very well. And dumbbell, you can definitely use a dumbbell if you want, or dumbbells if you want to. Totally depends on your goals. I mean, as far as like leg growth, I would say use a regular barbell.
How many, sorry, a question from YouTube.
Question from YouTube.
All is well asks, how many days in a week should I do squats?
All is well. How many days a week should you squat? If I were Corey Gregory, I would tell you to squat every day. All of the squats every day. Honestly, that depends entirely on your goal. I'm so sorry. Most of my answers to everyone is going to be it depends. Depends on your goal. I mean, you can technically squat every day if you want to. If your legs are little bitty legs and you want to put some meat on them, eat a lot of food and do a lot of squats. If you're working for, like if you want to get on a powerlifting platform and you want to squat with that, I would program your squats differently. You probably don't need that much volume. You want to work for weight, not volume. Even though that's kind of one and the same sometimes. For a beginner, if you're a beginner, I don't know, I would say twice a week to start. If you really like, and then you can go up to 3 times a week if you'd like. There's really no like right or wrong to that. It completely depends on what you want to do for your legs and why you're doing squats in the first place. Serena Shaw asks, deeper squats are good, yes. Answer is it depends on your mobility, on how you're built, on your goal. Deeper squats, I mean, if you're gonna be an Olympic lifter or a CrossFitter, yes, you're gonna have to learn how to squat a little deeper. If you're gonna be a power lifter, really your hips just have to go barely below your knee, and we'll talk about that as we get going forward. Wow, what should people do if they have bad knees? That's a really good question. So there's this like crazy, you can face the camera if you want, you don't have to stare. There's a lot of really weird information out there about how squatting is bad for your knees, and that's just truly not the case. It is the case if you do a really poor squat. Like Dean was just showing us, if you're coming forward, that puts a lot of shear in your knees, that's gonna hurt like hell. If you're gonna come back and use your hamstrings and your butt to do the work, that's gonna put a lot less tension on your knees. And furthermore, the lower you go really in the squat, the less tension there is on your knees, because your posterior chain is gonna do the work. So it's not gonna be bad for your knees. If you want a little extra cushion and help, grab some knee sleeves, 5 or 7 millimeters thick. The thicker they are, the more oomph you're gonna get out of the bottom. These might help you, or get some wraps. Try those out. But just because you have bad knees, and really I would talk to a doctor if they're really bad, like if they're broken or some issue, don't do squats. But if they're just sore, sort of if you have some tendinitis, like that's kind of stuff you might just have to work through. Julio asked, what if people still had a backache? If your squats are hurting your back, you're doing them improperly, and we're going to talk about that when we get to that. So yes. Jake, when I do squats, I feel it most in my quads and hams. How do I attack the glutes better? We're going to talk about that. I would change the position on your back, the bar on your back, put it a little lower, sit back a little further. We're going to get there. Jake, good question. Okay.
I got one from Twitch.
Twitch, question.
LL Zane, is it bad to lock your knees when coming up from squats? So at the top.
At the top? Yeah, that's...
Lock out.
I mean... I don't know. No, I don't think so.
You don't need to.
Yeah, I don't think you need to lock them out that far. Yeah, that's true. I mean, if your hips are, again, depends on the sport. Like, I don't think in powerlifting they have to be locked out. I think in general, if your hips are square and straight,
right,
then you're good to go. Yeah, I don't see why you would need to lock them out. In general, like in life.
Question from YouTube. Anthony asks, for beginners, would you suggest low bar or high bar?
Anthony, for beginners, is a good question. Suggest high bar or low bar squat for beginners. I suggest low bar for beginners, and I'm going to tell you why when we get there. You guys are asking so many good questions, I can't even start my tutorial. How do I engage my triceps more when squatting? That's probably a troll question. Good one. I like it.
It's very important.
Okay, so I'm gonna start talking things. I'm gonna like come back every couple minutes to you guys. I love all your questions. Keep them coming, and let me get to them as best as I can. Okay. One thing you can do if you're just starting out and you need help. Figuring out how to squat is to pull a bench up next to you and then squat to the bench, like Dean's doing. Boop. Good. And then you stand back up. So I challenge some of you to actually step forward a little bit. Good. This is going to help you teach how to push your butt back. Yeah. Jumping down and up. This is actually really scary to people that aren't used to using their hips and their butt and their hamstrings to do a squat. Pushing your hips back is going to help engage your glutes and your hamstrings. If you're doing it this way, a wider stance helps. So this is what I would suggest. Instead of having the box kind of right up on under your butt, so you just sort of I would push it back a little bit so you have to reach for it. This is high. As soon as you feel a little bit more comfortable, get one that's a little lower. Whoops, sorry, Dean.
Go with that.
There we go. Good. So if you see here, Dean's keeping a pretty good straight upper back. He's reaching back with his hips. He's keeping his weight, I don't know if you guys can see that, keeping his weight on his heels. He can pull his toes off the ground if he wants to. You don't necessarily have to do that. In fact, I don't suggest you do that. Another kind of interesting tip if you stand up, if you're standing in your toes, if you actually squeeze your front toe, that turns your butt on, weirdly enough. So I like to, when I'm squatting, get my position, squeeze my big toe in, and then I go. So then my butt's turned on. I don't even have to think about it, it just does it. Okay, another really great tool you can use to help you squat a little better, to learn what to do with your knees and hips, is to use a slingshot hip circle. Hashtag Mark Bell rules. Put this on. This can go right above your knees. The trick to using a hip circle is to keep tension on the band. And that's going to help you come back, come down, and back up. So a lot of other issues I see, again, particularly with women, is if when they squat, their knees cave in. I'm sure a lot of you guys see that. And the amount of ACL tears and the amount of issues with knees and hips and lower back that women have, I think have a lot to do with this sort of, I don't know, for some reason girls get taught to squat like this, or I don't understand. There's like a lot of other things going on. You talk about the Q angle or just in general hamstring weakness in women because we do a lot of stuff with our quads. So using a hip circle will help you keep your knees out because you're keeping tension on the band, and as you come down and up, you have to keep tension on the band. So I would really suggest grabbing one of these, or Just really any sort of band in general that you can put over your knees, above your knees, and then keep tension on as you're doing your squats. The slingshot is available in the BB.com store if you're interested. Okay, I'm gonna answer some questions. Whew. Okay, Mikey, you're doing great with the troll questions, bro. My feet. So Bernard asks, I cannot keep steady on the floor when I squat. How do I address it? My feet cannot keep steady. Does that mean it comes up and down? If you are coming up on your toes as you're coming back, it generally means that I would take weight completely off the bar and I would start from scratch. That's generally advice I give to most dudes that come into the gym. You've all seen him, he comes in, he puts 315 on the bar, and he does this. That's not a squat. Take the weight off, put 135 on. It's not like, who gives a crap? Just do the work properly. Learn how to put your feet, learn how to use your butt and your hamstrings to do the squat. You're gonna have much better, it's gonna take more time if you learn the movement properly. Moving well means that you will eventually do more weight. So I would address it by honestly starting over. See what happens. I haven't seen you do your squat. It's hard for me to say like what your feet are actually doing. Start from scratch. Generally that helps. It's like restarting your computer. Just turn it off and then turn it back on. Okay. How do I maintain yoke-like shoulders? Don't squat. It's not going to help you with the shoulders. How do I prevent from, Ravi asked how to prevent from falling off when squatting ass to grass. So falling forward. I imagine if you're falling, just don't squat ass to grass. There's no rules anywhere that says you have to squat ass to grass. Let's talk about depth for a moment, Dean. Let's talk about proper depth. So, if you're a power lifter, your depth is, once your hip crease gets below your knees, that is to depth. Now, a lot of the goal of really good power lifters is to flirt with that line, which is why you have judges, and which is why some power lifters don't hit a lift. Because really the goal is the shortest amount of range of motion, if that makes sense. So you're trying to get as much weight as you can and move that weight really in as little shortest line as possible. If you are trying to be a weightlifter, Dean, you go like a full out. So a lot of the times if you're weightlifting, if you're doing a clean or snatch, you're gonna be in this position really with weight in the front of you or weight over your head. So if you're weightlifting or really if you're into CrossFit, you're gonna have to come down a little bit further. But there's no right or wrong answer. And more importantly, not all of us are built to squat ass to grass. A lot of us have hip issues, our femurs might be too long or too short, we'll have knees that are built differently, ankle mobility might be an issue for that. So really, your goal is to squat as deep as you can that's comfortable and safe for your ability and your body type. That's the ultimate goal. And we'll talk about the butt wink here too. A lot of people, when they would you stand up and pretend to butt wink for me? So if you watch Dean, he rounds down at the bottom of his squat here, and a lot of people do that, and that causes, so if you're having lower, you can stand back up. If you're having lower back pain, as you're squatting, that's probably the issue. And there's a lot of things that could be going on. I mean, the oversimplified answer is that your hamstrings are tight. You can work on your mobility. I'm a total believer in mobility. That's going to help you if you move well, it's going to help you add weight, like I said before. But that's really a pretty oversimplified answer. Lots of us have our hip sockets where our femur hooks in can be deep, it can be shallow. The bone itself can be longer or shorter. There's a lot of things that can make our body's ability to move difficult. So I would just say, if you can, this is what I would say, film yourself doing a squat from the side. If you notice your butt tucking under, then play with that depth. Come down only as far until your butt starts to tuck, and then just come back up and work on your mobility, work on getting to a safe spot until you can, until you can get deeper and deeper and deeper in your squat as you go. Really, unless you're like trying to be a pro weightlifter, there's no reason to do an ass to breast squat. You can argue that there's more quad or hip muscle, whatever the word is, happening. Question from Twitch.
Shotgun Gypsy asks, I find one of my legs dominate when I rise from the squat. Is there a good exercise to let both legs straighten out?
What was his name again?
Shotgun Gypsy.
Shotgun Gypsy asks, when he's coming up from his squat, he notices that one leg is more dominant than the other, and there's an exercise to strengthen that, or to help that imbalance. That's actually super duper common. All of us have a dominant leg. I would say do your unilateral training. Do your Bulgarian split squats, do your step-ups, do your lunges, but don't do more weight or less weight on each side. Do the same weight on each side. They're going to catch back up. But yeah, really, I think that unilateral training will help you balance that out. And keep doing your squats. Again, like, your body will catch up to itself. It's just going to take a lot of time. So good question. Okay, I'm gonna see what questions we have here. Larissa asks, what to do for pain on the hip flexors when squatting? That's also really common, and again, that's a lot to do with how you're built, and it's a lot to do with your mobility. Work on your mobility, make sure you're doing your warm-up properly. If it's severe pain that like you can't work through, just don't do them. I mean, the gym is full of really cool equipment that doesn't hurt you. And again, if your goal is lifelong health, wellness, moving well, don't do things that hurt you. If your goal is to be a pro squatter, then you're gonna have to deal with a little bit of pain in order to get pain to get to that level. So again, I would work on your mobility. If that doesn't seem to be helping, go to an RT or go to a chiropractor or go to a PT and see if they can help you get there. Otherwise, if it's just a little bit of discomfort, I would say it'll probably work itself out in a couple sets.
Question from YouTube.
YouTube question.
Joshua asks, what are the best shoes for squats?
Good question. Joshua asks, what are the best shoes for squats? Answer, it depends. Weird. Yeah, Dean. So a lot of people really like these weightlifting shoes now because they have a lot of heel. So if you find yourself, well, here's issue number billion. A lot of people have poor ankle mobility, which means that getting into this position at all is really hard on their ankles. So if you can get your feet up, your heels up a little bit, that helps, that improves ergonomically, that helps improve that position. If you don't have these shoes, Nanos actually, like what Dean's wearing, have a little bit of heel on them. These are good. I would totally refrain from wearing anything that has anything squishy in it when you're squatting. That's just bad. That just like makes everything really unstable and you can collapse in and out. And if you're having issues with your feet in squatting, that's another thing. It might be your shoes. Take them off. Just wear your bare feet, wear your chucks. If you need a little help, if you're doing squats, I wouldn't do this on heavy squats, but if you're sort of like doing lighter squats, put a little 10-pound plate under your heels, and that can help you.
What about, so Yara from Twitch asked about socks or bare feet?
Yeah, Yara from Twitch, socks or bare feet also work just fine. That tends to work better. You see a lot of people doing the low bar squat in bare feet, or very like have nothing in their shoes. Let's talk about the difference between a high bar and a low bar squat while we're here. You guys asked so many good questions. I'm sorry I can't get to them all. Okay, so Dean's going to do a high bar squat first. So that means that the bar's going to land right on the top of his traps. And that's going to mean that he's going to be able to stay, his upper body is going to be able to stay really upright as he squats down. And it also means, go ahead. That also means, sit down at the bottom for a little bit if you can. That also means that his angle here and here are much more severe, and here, than it would be in a low bar squat. So this, squatting like this takes more mobility and time to figure out how to do. That's why I don't suggest it for beginners. You can sit back up. Thank you. It's just in general, just a more difficult, should I stay down here? It's just a more difficult position to get into mobility-wise. But if you're working on more athletic movements like the snatch or clean and jerk, I totally suggest using the high bar squat. If you are a mobile person and squatting is sort of pain-free for you, then why not use that? It's going to be a little bit more quad dominant than a low bar squat, but I mean you're still definitely going to turn on your hamstrings and your glutes. It's not going to not use them. And then a low bar squat, the bar is actually going to land a little shelf right here under, so you have like your traps, even your traps are a long muscle. There's a little area right here underneath them that you can shove that bar up underneath. Your head is going to be more neutral in a low bar squat. And then like we were working on with Dean earlier, his hips are going to come really far back in a low bar squat. Nice, Dean, that's perfect. And if you'll notice, he doesn't have to go as deep in this squat. And these angles are much less acute. His shins are a little bit, they're much more vertical, as we say. And then his upper body is a little more leaned forward. To me, although you can go ahead, the balance portion is a little bit more difficult. If you're not used to pushing your hips back, the balance is a little bit more difficult. But in terms of how your body, the amount of like muscle fibers or whatever that your body uses, increases in a squat. And it's general knowledge that in a low bar back squat, you can probably squeak out an extra 5%. As opposed to a high bar back squat. But I think that entirely depends on who's doing the squatting and how good they are at squatting. So as a beginner, play with that low bar back squat. Yes, you're gonna be a little more forward and you're gonna have people be like, oh, your chest is too low for the squat. Say, shut up, I'm doing a low bar squat, my hips are back, I'm doing what I know I should be doing. Question?
Joshua asked, can feet pronation hurt squatting? It says, does feet go in?
Can feet pronation hurt squatting? Joshua from Twitch?
YouTube.
From the YouTubes. Yeah, that's strange that they're doing that. I'm not sure if you're squatting and as you're squatting they do this. That's strange. And yes, that would make squatting more difficult because that would make it more likely that your knees would come in too. So that's really hard on your body to have your feet come in and your knees go out. I don't even know, that's rough. So I would really work on, and if you need to make this more severe than you would normally, you can go ahead and do that. If it's easier for you or more helpful to have your toes shoved out really, really wide in order to make it so they don't come in, do that. But yeah, pronation is not helping you at all. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the YouTubes, or I'm sorry, to the Facebooks. Alex asks, you mentioned ACLs. What do you recommend for squats when someone has had ACL reconstruction on their knees and is starting to squat all over again? I recommend, here Dean, have a kettlebell and have a ball. I recommend doing this. Light squats to a ball till she gets her strength, or he or she gets their strength back up. Again, with the squat, the most important thing about a squat, you can stop whenever you want to, Dean, is the movement pattern itself. Move well before you throw weight on the bar. Unless you're a crazy person who's just ultra strong. If someone has had an ACL injury, there's a lot that could be happening, but moving well, moving properly, understanding what the knee should be doing, which is definitely not caving in, which might have been part of the issue in the first place, that they're out. Not necessarily so, and then there's a lot of weird stuff about how your knees have to be like way out when you squat. That's not necessarily true. And your knees can come in a little bit, as long as they're aligned with your toes, that's pretty good advice. And you'll notice if you have, and you can watch even really, really good squatters come down and on the way up, their knees come in a little bit, but they shove them out on the way out, up. So that's going to happen as long as you're aware of where your feet are, where your knees are, where your hips are, where your shoulders are, at all times during the squat. That's the important part. The important part is moving well. So ACL, light squat, grab a kettlebell, grab some dumbbells, and then work on the movement pattern itself. Work on adding weight, putting weight on the back when he or she is ready and feels strong. Okay, good job, you. Oops. Work on adding weight, putting weight on the back when he or she is ready. I found this. How do I turn it off? Which school? I don't know how to do it. Which squats are best for bow-legged people? Yvonne Maria Santana asks. I mean, as far as a high bar and a low bar squat, like really start with your low bar. I think that's probably going to be the best. That's going to help you. Really, it's hard to be bow-legged or that affecting at all your squats if you're pushing your hips back. Work on low bar. That's what I would suggest. Maybe I missed this, but can you show us some effective hip mobility warm-ups? Yes, we can do that. Hang on. You guys are welcome. Thank you. Okay, Pete Lev asks, what stance would you suggest for a 36-inch inseam? My knees travel past my toes unless I do a wide stance feet out at 45 degrees and use my adductors. I have really long femurs, so I totally feel your pain. My adductors are sore like every time that I do squats. Really, because you're tall, like, squatting is gonna be hard for you. Like, that's what's gonna suck about it. I would put the bar lower on my back. Again, I don't know if you're doing that. And that will help sort of negate having to be so wide because you're gonna come back a little bit further. So if you're super wide and you're coming down, that turns these on in here. If you come back a little bit further, that might help you. Having long legs is just, that's a really long range of motion, so it's always going to be a little bit more difficult for you. Not impossible, but again, play with the bar, where the bar is on your back, and play with pushing your hips back more, and that might help. What if you've had bad knees and that hurts you? I talked about this before. Squatting isn't necessarily bad for your knees. Put on some knee sleeves. Ask a doctor or PT if you have an injury. If you have an injury, don't do it. That's part of athletics, really, is some aches and pains. Train through it if you want to. If it hurts too bad, you don't have to do squats. There's no rule. The squat gods aren't going to come smite you. It doesn't matter. Thank you, guys. Shoulders. How can I dominate the Olympia in 2018? James Murphy, you asked, that's a good question. Man, I don't know the answer. How much do you weigh, bro? FST 7. Sorry guys, you're asking so many good questions. Should I look up or straight? Trevor Griffin, good question. Should I look up or straight forward when squatting? Look straight forward. For some reason, every football coach in America teaches his kids to do this. Worst advice ever. This is like the worst thing for your neck and your spine. The point, really, in the back squat in particular, I think is more, or the low bar squat in particular, is more important. Have a, look maybe 4 feet in front of you. Like I'm looking at the bottom of the rig right here when I'm squatting. And I'm gonna try to keep that head angle the whole time. Yes, it's weird. Yes, you can't look at yourself in the mirror. Learn what your body's doing. You shouldn't have to look at yourself in the mirror anyway. Keep your head as neutral as possible, I think. If you're doing a high bar squat, looking forward is probably gonna be more likely. Don't look up, just don't. There's nothing, I don't know why football, they taught you how to do that, don't do that. Okay. Gio asks, my right arm gets numb. Wow, my right arm gets numb. What's the reason on the back squat? I imagine that's some sort of shoulder issue. Yeah. That's very strange. I would go get that checked out. That shouldn't happen in this position. If you're okay not doing back squats, try front squat. I'm going to show. This is definitely more for your quadriceps than it is for your glutes and hamstrings, but your glutes and hamstrings will turn on in this. This position might help you a little bit better if it hurts your shoulders to have your arms back here. So I would suggest trying a front squat. Issue with the front squat is going to be mobility. Dean obviously has some mobility issues, but this is going to help. So if you can't hold on to it in a clean style, just fold your arms and do it this way. Same thing, Dean's got a really nice straight back. He's pushing back with his hips, and he's standing straight up. His head is nice and neutral, or just facing forward. Yes, there you go. Put feet on outer sides of heels to prevent this. I'm not sure what you mean, Daniel. That's too exaggerated. I don't know what you guys mean. Okay, I'm gonna go to the Which is better, front or back squat? Completely depends, again, on your goal. You're not going to squat as much weight on a front squat as you would for a back squat, but I totally suggest putting both of them in your program. If you want to learn how to do a clean, you have to front squat. Because if you're at the bottom here and you want to get up, you're gonna have to front squat, because that's essentially what a clean is. Again, a front squat is going to put more pressure. I mean, you're going to use your quads more, but it doesn't mean you're not going to use your hamstrings and your glutes. What's unknown about squats in general is actually it's a really good core, I don't want to say workout, but you're going to engage your core hugely. So one of the functions of your core is anti-flexion and anti-extension, and that your core's purpose is really to keep you upright. So if you have weight on the front of your body right here, without your core, you just like collapse forward. Same thing if it's on your back, you would either fall backwards, or if it's low enough for your back, you could collapse forward. If you have a weak core, squatting heavy is going to be really difficult for you. And that's why you see a lot of people, when they're squatting, they come butt first, and then it's like, it's generally a core issue. That's a whole other thing we didn't even talk about that. If you're squatting, again, I totally suggest you have your friend or your buddy like film you, get your phone out, film you doing your squats. And if you're doing the stripper squat where you're doing this, it's like, stop what you're doing, take the weight off the bar, and like relearn how to squat. Push that restart button on the computer. No one's watching, nobody cares. Do move well. I don't know where I was going with that. That was a good question. How do you set up an overhead squat? So this is a really good question. So the purpose of an overhead squat, I think, unless you are doing weightlifting or CrossFit, is really a mobility exercise. So what Dean's going to do is he's going to put the bar on his back. He's going to put his hands in where he would in a snatch, which is wider. He's going to push press it up, push jerk it up, and he's going to do the same kind of good squat motion we've been working on. He's going to push his hips back, and he's going to try to keep the bar right over the top of his head. If you are new to doing this, good job, Dean, you're done. I 100% don't think you should do anything other than that. Just don't. There's no reason to do that. If you are a hypermobile person, you can move your hands closer in. You can do it that way. But the same sort of rules apply to an overhead squat. It's going to be more difficult because your mobility, in most people, your T-spine is probably way tight because you're used to being forward on your computer all the time. Being up and out and open is really hard to do. Same thing though, you want to keep your chest high, you want to keep your butt back. You just, this time, your hands are going to be over your head. Lightweight unless you're mobile and you know what you're doing and you have a strong back and core. But that's a really good question. Do you need to wear the belt when you're doing squats by diet? That's a really good question too. So this is what a belt looks like. To me, and most strength athletes, I would say you do not put a belt on unless you're going over 80%. If you don't train that way, if you don't train based on a percentage, and you just do back squats as part of your leg day, I don't think you need a belt. Unless you're going for your 1 rep max or your 3 rep max, and maybe even your 5 rep max. Let your core do what it's supposed to do. And a lot of people think that a belt is actually to help your back, which is true, but it helps your back because a belt gives your abs something to press against, which can make it, what's the right word? Which increases the tension, if that makes sense, and can make squatting coming up a little bit easier. But that's the purpose of a belt. It's not to, for some reason, I don't know, like put pressure on your back. It's actually it's so you can push your stomach forward, which can relieve pressure on your back, is the point of it. So a lot of the times you'll see belts like this one kind of where it's fatter in the back than in the front. That's not necessarily what you need to look for. You need to look for something that is the same length all the way around, or the same width all the way around, okay? Totally up to you. If you back squat often, you'll know when you need to put a belt on. My general rule is over 80%. Anything less than that, you can handle it without. Good question though. Okay. Belt, yes or no, we got there. Should the hips go down till 90 degrees or way more down? Okay, depends on your, I would say if at 90 degrees really is right where the tension is worst on your knees. A little bit below, that's actually gonna help more musculature turn on so you can actually not have so much pressure on your knees. So no, don't stop at 90 degrees. Go until your hip crease is below your knees. That doesn't mean you have to be down here. You can still be right here. I can't see myself, so this might be the right spot. Okay. Acid grass squat, there's really, I mean, if your mobility prevents it, if you want to put on some heavy weight, you don't have to go acid grass. There's no like rule, no gods. Squat gods don't care. Squat gods just care that you're squatting. Why would you wear a belt? Do what you want, okay. Deadlift, question mark? You should deadlift. Deadlifting is good. Good question. We love you. Oh, girls. How to increase ankle dorsiflexion. Okay, so ankle mobility is a really big deal for squatting. Front squatting, if you want to be an Olympic weightlifter, you're going to need good ankle mobility. One of the best ways to do that, you know this one where you just put your foot on there? Just put one foot, face that way, yep. So what Dean's going to do here is going to lean forward, he's going to, and put your chest underneath. Oh wait, yeah. He's going to try to crush himself. Good job, Dean. He's basically going to try to crush his knee down, so he's stretching out his ankle here. Does that hurt? How's that feel? So this is actually, he's got really good mobility, which is probably why he does his front squats so well. That is great. Do that. Really any sort of movement, just even this, stretching your calves like this. This will do it. But the point is to challenge, just like, I don't know, if you guys have ever taken a really hardcore yoga class where they're like, I don't know, some yoga classes are like, do what feels good, don't go further, blah, blah, blah. And then there's some yoga classes where like, challenge the movement, rawr. So that's what you want to go for a hardcore yoga class. So you're going to pull yourself into whatever you're doing, whatever stretch you're doing, try to do it hard. And then change the position, try to bend your knee a little bit, pull yourself into it. The point of stretching for mobility purposes is to challenge it, to make it difficult. And yes, there's yoga stretching, and then there's more hardcore. And if you want better mobility, for your ankles in particular, you're gonna have to crush them. And yeah, it hurts, but. Okay, you guys are asking really good questions. Whew. Should you vary the position of your feet, toes out, toes in, feet out? Okay. Again, I don't know the research on this, that like you're gonna have any different quad development depending on where your feet are in your squat. I honestly, I don't know. I think that's kind of silly. That if you're trying to like work different angles of your quads, doing squats with like your feet faced other ways, like there's much more efficient ways to do that. And like I'm not sure if it's worth putting your feet in a bad position to like turn on your vastus medialis a little bit or whatever. Does that make sense? You can do it if you want to play with it. My suggestion is if you're playing with your feet, like do it for the purpose of a good squat position, not for quad development. Okay. Maybe teach what an isometric contraction is. Might help clarify what you mean by squats work your core. Okay, good question. Let's do that. Let's make that a little bit more applicable to squatting. So, let's talk about breathing in general for squats. And particularly if you have heavy weight on the bar. But even if not, there's a good way to breathe in the squat. So go ahead and grab this. So when Dean steps out, he's going to take 1, 2 steps, or 3. He's going to fix his feet, that's fine. He's going to take a big breath in, and he's going to push down in his belly like he's pooping. Weirdly enough, so he's going to push in his belly. He's going to hold that, you can breathe, sorry. He's actually going to hold that breath, and if he had a belt on here, he would be pushing into that belt. He's going to hold that breath as he comes down, and then his way up, he can let it out. Holding that breath actually keeps your core tighter. It's going to help you stabilize through the whole movement. So if you are breathing the whole time, like if you're like, it's much more likely that you're gonna have some issues coming forward or like crumbling forward if your core isn't contracted. That makes sense. So the best way, go ahead and even put that. Keep your core contracted by holding your breath, pushing outward, and then coming down. Hold your breath. And yeah, you might get dizzy, especially if you have like lots of weight on the bar. If you are not used, if you're like in an area where, grab a partner. If you're doing really heavy squats, have them help you. If you get lightheaded in a squat, let's play with your breathing. That's worth doing if you're like on a powerlifting platform or if you're trying to get a PR. Other than that, like if this happens, if you're just doing like 5 sets of 5 and you're getting dizzy every time, like let's chill out and breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Like definitely breathe out on the way. If you're here, take a couple breaths and then go again. That makes sense. But the point, I'll get to your question in a sec. A really good point is to not just hold your breath, but contract your stomach like you're pooping. Question from
YouTube. Does higher reps and lighter weight squats focus on burning fat instead of gaining muscle?
Good question. Marv from YouTube. Does high reps and low weight help with fat burning for squats? That answer is complicated. Okay, so if you're in the business of losing weight, the thing you need to focus on is your nutrition. That's what matters. What you do in the gym is literally like a tiny portion of the weight loss equation. Yes, working out is healthy, everyone should do it, you need to move. It doesn't matter if you were in the gym, if you're out hiking, if you're a skier, or whatever you do, movement matters. For weight loss, what matters most is what you're doing in the kitchen. So I don't mean to like dismiss your question, like it doesn't matter. You could do either one squats. If your nutrition is on track, how you exercise with your squats really isn't gonna matter. So the answer is yes and no. Do whatever you want with the squat, eat well. Okay. Wow, you guys are asking so many good questions. Okay, Gary. Okay, here, Anthony, we'll ask you answer first. Should you pause between reps or keep going till you hit your rep total? Pause between reps. Breathe. There's no reason to do speed squats, especially if you have weight on your back. Like what? Like why? Can you show them what a non-breathy, weird... These are speed squats. There's truly, in my mind, like no reason to do them. This is how it should look, your sets. Good deal. Perfect. They should look like that, set 2. I mean, unless, even in CrossFit where you do weird, like heavy reps for time, you still don't do speed squats. You do them quickly, but you're still focused on good form and good breathing to keep your core contracted so you don't crumble yourself forward and injure yourself. Does that make sense? So take your time. Doesn't matter. I have been lifting for 30 plus years and you were very good at explaining. Thank you so much, Gary. Let's see, what else? What's good mobility, Gary? Again, Gary, different Gary. What's a good mobility exercise for getting under the bar for a low bar squat? Do you mean like your back getting under it? Or your shoulders, that might be an issue? Shoulder mobility is a huge problem. Again, work on that, work on those overhead squats. Any sort of stretching, I really like, do you do this where you just put your hand and just like put both hands on it and then just like bend forward? I like this and have your friend put weight, not like sit on you, but like a weight plate. Right here, higher than you think, not down here, but here. And then hang out there for a minute or two. Just let that sink right in. You can also do, you can be done. You can also do even here, and then come forward. This is more like pec stretchy, but this is definitely gonna help you if you struggle. Like if this position in general is difficult for you, if you're way out here or you have to hold here, which I don't understand, you need to work on your mobility. That's a question I have for you. Why do people put their hands way high out here when they're squatting? Riddle me that. Okay. When it gets hard, that's what she said, my legs go a little bit inside and it gets easier to get up. Wow, is it better? Should I put less weight? So if your knees are collapsing, that's natural, that's gonna happen. So if you're here and your knees collapse a little bit when you come up, just make sure you're pushing them out as you come up. It's much more likely if you're doing a high bar squat because you're going down so low that your knees are gonna collapse in. If you're doing a low bar squat, it's probably less likely that your knees are gonna collapse. So that will happen, that's okay. Your goal, your job is to push your knees back out on the way up. You can also take weight off and use this hashtag Mark Bell rules hip circle. Keep that tension on your you literally can't get your knees to push in if you're keeping tension on the band the whole time. Okay. Shouldn't the breath be held until the top of the motion? If you want to, I mean, sometimes it's really hard, especially if you're going really heavy, to hold your breath the entire squat. I mean, for me, in general, I usually hold my breath until I'm about here, and then I let it out, because I get stuck. For me, personally, in a squat, I get stuck here. So to keep my pressure, keep everything going on in my core, I usually hold my breath a little bit longer, and let it out there. Depends. I highly suggest that you don't get down to the bottom, let it out, and then try to get back up. Hold it until you're on your way up. But you don't have to hold it until you're at the top. Unless you get stuck here, which is unlikely. I think once you get to this position, you can probably come back up. Good question.
Question from YouTube.
Question from YouTube.
They asked, how do you build great legs with a herniated disc if you can?
How do you build great legs with a herniated disc? Well, okay. Probably don't do this. Take advantage of the myriad exercise machines happening. I mean, I think a leg press might hurt. Talk to your doctor. Ask your doctor, he or she, what you should do. A really cool exercise that I've seen is like you put 2 feet on boxes and you put like a dip belt on and you put weight and then you squat this, so it's just weight on your hips and you squat this way. And that relieves all the pressure from your back. It's all just hanging on in your hips. That might be a good way for you to go. You can hold weight at your sides when you're doing stuff. Yeah, I would talk to your doctor and just play with leg movements that the weight's not on your back. It might be a great way to do it. And you can still build great quads that way. It might just take a little bit of extra work, but not impossible. Good question. Sean asks, is it okay to work out my legs today if I worked them out 2 days ago? Yes, it is. Sure is. When should I use ollie shoes? I suggest using them whenever you want to. I've seen people use them with a low bar squat. I've seen people use them with a high bar squat. If you feel more comfortable, if it's easier for you, then put them on. Again, the squat gods don't care if you have ollie shoes on or not. If you can afford them, they can be spendy. Buy them and wear them. Why, right? Why not? I don't think there's any reason why not to. Good question. Okay, Noah says, arms out. Oh, you answered my question, thank you. Nice. Because he is very tight in my chest and shoulders, plus carpal tunnel syndrome means tendons are tight in your elbow. So just bending it is uncomfortable. Roger that. I would work on that chesticle mobility though. That would be good for you. Okay, Matthew Ray Goodson asks, you mentioned pushing your hips back to initiate squats. Could you demonstrate the difference between initiating with the hips and tilting your hips, aka anterior pelvic tilt? Common flaw with. Okay, we can do this again since we did this a little bit, but grab the bar. Okay, so Dean's gonna do first a high bar squat. This is a high bar squat. And can you hang out at the bottom a little bit? This angle is short, acute, acute. But he's tall here. His head's facing forward. This is what a high bar squat really should look like at the bottom. Go ahead and stand back up. So, a lot of people struggle when they do a squat is their hips pull under. That's called a butt wink. Go ahead and do that, or anterior pelvic tilt. And Dina has a hard time doing it. Here, I'll show you. I can do it a little bit better. So as you're squatting, and if it comes underneath like that, that can cause a lot of pressure in your lower back and your hips. That hurt. That's usually why if your lower back hurts when you're squatting, that's generally because as you're squatting, your hips are tucking under when you come under, or when you come down. If that happens, I suggest you don't go that low. Film yourself doing a squat, watch what your body's doing, go down only as far, like let's say Dee needs to stop here. That's fine. You don't have to go ass to grass. Do what's safe and good for your body at this moment. Work on it, on your mobility and your strength, and it'll improve. And then Dee's gonna show a low bar squat. He's gonna roll it down under his traps here. So what's going to be different about this is his hips are going to come back more toward me, his head's going to be a little more neutral, and it's going to feel weird because you're going to bend forward a little bit more. So these angles, here is less acute, and here is less acute, or I'm saying, but here is different. These are bigger, here, this is a little bit smaller, which is fine. And honestly, to me, if you're a noob and you have mobility issues, this is a much better choice for your squat. Good job. Because it's just easier for your body to get in that position. Again, it turns your glutes and hamstrings on arguably a little bit better than a high bar squat. And if you practice it a lot, you can eke out maybe 5% more weight-wise on a low bar squat than you can a high bar squat. But again, that completely depends on like who's doing the squatting. If you're a pro power lifter, yeah, you're gonna clearly do a lot more because that's the kind of squat that you're gonna work with. Okay, what's Twitch question?
Are Converse shoes a good alternative to lifting shoes?
Are Converse shoes a good alternative to lifting shoes? Well, they're not necessarily an alternative. So I'm gonna grab Dean's lifting shoe here. This has a heel on it. The reason that this helps is because it's tall, it puts your foot in a more ergonomically helpful position to put the rest of your body in a better position to squat. So a Converse is not necessarily an alternative because a Converse doesn't have a heel. Converse is just flat. So if you have ankle mobility issues, this might be a better option. However, there is the argument you can make that if you have ankle mobility issues, the best way to combat those ankle mobility issues is to squat in a hard position for your body. If you continue to squat in low shoes like this and it hurts, there's a good chance it's going to get better over time. So alternative is the wrong word. Option, yes, you can wear whatever. You can wear bare feet. You can wear socks. You can wear those gross shoes that are just like the toe shoes. You can wear those. But yeah, that's just going to depend entirely on if you truly are like that concerned about your squat performance, then I would invest in these. If you're squatting, again, just be happy and healthy and like move well, then just like wear whatever you have on, except squishy shoes. Shoes that are squishy, that have like squishy heels, do not wear those. If you have foot issues and your ankles collapse in or out, that's probably because your shoes don't have enough, they're just too squishy. There's like not enough, it can't be on the floor enough, if that makes sense. I don't know the right word. Okay, moving on. Good. Whew. Question, which do you recommend, squat on Smith machine or normal? Don't use a Smith machine ever. I hate that machine. If you're on a Smith machine, that's gonna make your body be in a really particular position, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the bar will be over your center of mass. So a lot of the times if people are on a Smith machine, yes, you can do it the other way if that's easier for them to see. So this is pretend Dean's on a Smith machine. This is how you have to squat, which makes like literally no sense in the real world. And it's, again, okay, so this is just a difference of opinion in terms of why you exercise. If you're working out for bodybuilding only and you're not concerned about how your body moves in space, then sure, use a Smith machine. I don't think you're gonna get as much muscle stimulation, I don't think you're gonna grow as much, but if it makes you feel better, use it. If you are working out to move well, to like run away from zombies or fight them or like climb a tree, I don't know, play with your children, use a regular barbell. Okay, that's my long answer. Noah, again, are squats okay for people with flat feet or should they wear their supports in their trainers instead of barefoot? Yeah, flat feet, it doesn't matter what kind of feet you have. As long as your ankles, you know, as long as you're not collapsing in on yourself, as long as when you're squatting, you're like not like this, you're gonna be fine. I don't think the type of feet you have is gonna change how you squat. I mean, there's some argument that having flat feet might even help you.
More power, right?
Yeah.
More connection.
Tony asks, is going parallel good enough for muscle growth? Yes, sure, yes. Again, what is the purpose of your squats? If you're just doing it to grow muscle, I think you could probably argue that you would get more muscle stimulation going a little bit lower. And again, parallel is actually harder on your knees than going a little bit below parallel. That's my response. I'm like an anti-parallel squatter. It's part of just from the kind of athlete I am. But like, I think the world in general puts too much pressure on their knees doing parallel squats. Go a little bit, you don't have to go ass to grass. Again, make sure your hip crease is a little bit below your knee crease and you're good to go. That'll turn on your butt and your hamstrings a little bit better. Okay, let's see, Vicky asks, I'm skinny but with a tummy. When I lift weight, I lose weight. So what can I do to lose the tummy but not the body weight? Again, it's gonna be nutrition. It doesn't matter what you're doing in the gym. It doesn't matter if you're exercising in and out of the gym. It matters entirely on what you're doing in the kitchen. And body fat, where it ends up on your body, it entirely depends on your genetics. Some of us carry it here. A lot of boys carry it right here. Women usually carry it in their butt and thighs. You just have to be patient and just really work on your nutrition. Whew. Okay. What else we got going on here? It's been an hour. So how about any last questions? I'm sorry if I didn't get everybody's questions. I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh wow, there's more. And
Let's do speed questions.
Speed questions. Okay.
Simple one-word answer questions.
Okay, so this is just a fun game we're gonna do. Speed questions. You ask me questions that I can only answer in like 1 or 2 words. Or Dean. Cassie or Dean.
Nutrition, fitness.
Nutrition, fitness, bodybuilding, CrossFit, troll questions, all of the above. Ready, go. Will this be available to watch? Yes. Come back.
YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all three.
Do I like nachos? Hell yeah. Can you overwork your legs? What's a good set and reps? Yes, you can overtrain. Here's a good way to think about it. If you constantly, this is not a one-word answer, if you constantly can't sleep at night because your body hurts too bad, that means you're overtraining. That can happen, that happens to me. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah.
Happens to me every once in a while. If that's a consistent thing, you're overtraining.
What's the best warm-up for squat?
Best warm-up for squat is an air squat with that sucker. Or you can do little monster walks this way, this way, this way. Forward, forward, back, 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 back.
If you are overweight / obese, should you strength train?
If you are overweight / obese, should you strength train? Absolutely. No reason anyone should not lift weights. If your body has, this is not a one-word answer. If your body has more muscle, your body basically burns more fat. So building muscle is good for you. It's going to help everything. If you lift weights, it's going to help your joints. It's It's gonna help your bones. Yeah, there's no reason not to if you're overweight. It might be difficult for you to move well with extra weight. So it might be easier for you to get a little bit of weight off by walking. It's gonna be your nutrition, 100% most of the time. Nutrition first, walk, unless you feel comfortable and can move well. Get a little weight off and then start strength training. But there's no reason you shouldn't now if you feel good doing it.
Protein or carnivore, protein or vegan?
Protein or vegan protein?
Yes.
Good question. If it hurts your belly, if whey bothers your belly, don't eat whey.
That's pretty simple.
Do you use testosterone supplements? Personally, no.
Yes.
Dean does.
Yes.
It's clearly crazy, the amount of steroids used. Should I wear my baseball cap backwards to be more aerodynamic squatting?
Yes, it helps, for sure. And hide your shorts up. The higher your shorts go, the stronger your legs.
If the gym can't see your quads, you're doing something wrong.
Do you have Instagrams and do you want to share them?
Yes. Dean T10.
Dean T10,
Yep.
no spaces.
No spaces.
Mine is Cassie A. Smith, Cassie.A.Smith. Be prepared for baby pictures.
Yeah, lots of baby pictures.
Sorry.
For both of us.
Yes.
And
Some training. Training in babies' life. LOL, thanks, you're welcome. Should I shave my beard? Will it help me in the gym? Sean,
Never.
yeah,
Never.
keep that. I think beard helps increase testosterone in general. That's, sorry, dude. Camera guy has a really hard time growing beards.
obviously, Asian can't grow beards. I would if I could. Sean, don't do it.
Don't do it, man.
It'll
Keep your beard.
hurt my heart if you do it.
Disagree strongly. Are you excited for Stranger Things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We're gonna have a Stronger Things promo on BBCom soon.
Keep an eye out for that.
Spoiler.
Keep an eye out for
Spoiler.
that. Oh boy.
Dean, what's your favorite video game of all time?
Dean's favorite video
All
game.
time.
Gosh, Madden 2K?
Sports.
Yeah, sports games
Sports
mostly
games.
for me.
All the Twitch guys are like,
But it wasn't Halo or GoldenEye.
No, you made your choice.
You made your
You made
choice.
your choice.
Let's see. Thoughts about time under tension. That's hard to do with one word. Time under tension is good. If it's good, do it. I mean, here's the thing again about movement patterns. If you think doing like quarter reps of things to keep your muscle under tension the whole time, depending on the movement, biceps curls, like do whatever you want. But like, to me, doing a movement as it's supposed to be done and doing it well is more important than, to me, than like how much vasodilation and pump I get. But that is a personal choice. So you do you, boo-boo.
I'm scared to fall down. What should I do? Please.
Scared to fall down on a squat? That's, you know what, that's a super common fear. There are things you can do. Grab a buddy, take weight off, and also learn how to bail. We could have a whole other video tutorial on bailing.
I mean,
We can show it.
Do squats help with general body growth in women?
Yes. Squats are, yeah, you can grab, so we can show you how to bail. Squats are one of those movements that use almost all of the muscles in your body. Squats are also great for women because it's a bone loading exercise, which means women in general have a worse time with calcium deficiencies in their bones as they get older. So doing squats is great. Yes, do it. Women, men, everyone should do it. So this is how you bail in a squat. Dean's going, can't get up. Oh. That's all. That's all you gotta do. You just throw it off your back. That's all. You wanna show them again, Dean?
You get weird looks.
You'll get weird looks, but it doesn't matter.
First, use clips. Always use clips.
Squat down, come up. Oh, can't do it. Not scary, it's fine. The gym might look at you. I would suggest don't do that unless you have bumper plates.
Don't do metal plates.
Don't do metal plates. If you are squatting with metal plates, use the safety thingies. Bars. Safety thingies. Safety bars. Clearly I work out. Use those, use a buddy. Just make yourself safe. Okay, we gotta wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me and Dean today. We're gonna do more tutorials. Ask me questions on Instagram, Dean too. He's a certified coach. He knows what he's talking about too. And we'll be back. Let us know also if you want to add more comments what other tutorials you would like to see. I saw some shoulder stuff.
We have a lot of
Beginner core stuff. Okay, we can totally do that. Any other questions, please feel free to leave them on the Facebooks. I'll come in and answer them. So will Dean, and then Instagram. And thank you guys all for coming to hang out. See you later.
Being fit feels amazing. You feel like you can overcome anything in life because you already have. You feel confident in yourself. You have nothing to worry about. You're healthy. You're taken care of. Now you can take on the world and go do what you need to do.